Got any good doppelganger related stories or pasta X? A doppelganger is a paranormal phenomena, usually described as a dark, nefarious twin of you that some people see when the real you is nowhere nearby. Spotting your dark twin may lead to a bad time. Sometimes, they appear in darkened mirrors instead of your reflection. It is believed that their goal is to ruin or overtake your life. I've only got a few stories, and none involve myself, thankfully, though they are pretty boring. However, I shall still use them to bump the thread, really hoping for some juicy doppelganger stories. It's something I study in my spare time. It has a sort of a lore for me. You'll like it as well. There was this chick in college whom I liked a lot. She was pretty friendly, and we even went to a few events together, as friends. One day, I saw her randomly on a street in the city, walking somewhere. She was alone and seemed to be just strolling around in no particular hurry. I first waved to her, yet she did not react. I then approached her and said hello, calling her by her name. She turned to me, and I am 100% sure it was her, but didn't say anything. She looked at me with so much evil energy, man. I mean, it kinda chilled me at the moment. I still remember that gaze, as if the bitch was staring at a pile of smelly doo-doo feces, and not a pal from college that she knew rather well. She then turned around and walked off, quickening her pace and leaving me confused and embarrassed. Next week, when she sat with me during a lecture like always, I carefully asked what that was all about. I remember apologizing, being like, "You were probably stressed out or something when I ran into you, yeah?" She was like, "Huh? I never met you on the street, dude." I was like, yes you did." As I was assuring her that we've met and she acted weird, I noticed her growing more and more pale and stressed. She finally said, "I swear that wasn't me, but this shit you told me, you're not the first person to tell me a story like that." Later, she moved to the UK, and we lost contact. So, I don't know whether the doppelganger ate her in the end. Like you might have guessed from the cringy typos in my previous reply, I'm a Slav. In Slav school, when there's more than 30 children in, for example, 3rd grade, it gets partitioned into 2 3rd grades, which are named by letters. My school had 4 classrooms for 5th graders, numbered A, B, C, and D, but since our school only had around 70 to 80 5th graders, Classroom D was always empty and locked. I vividly remember a kid called Vadim, who told everyone willing to listen that, one time, when he was late for a lesson, he decided to try and walk into the D classroom instead of the proper one. When he did so, he saw that it was full of kids. Crooked, hunchbacked, dirty, disgusting, drooling copies of us from 5th grade, the B class. He slammed the door shut and ran away into the proper classroom. He was also an arsonist and smoked, killed cats, and done all manners of shit since he was barely 10. So, I guess he might have made it up for attention, or otherwise, out of being a retard. A tall tale from the current conflict in Ukraine. Buddy is a technician in Ukrainian forces, so basically does nothing most of the time, apart from listening to cool stories and watching porn. One day, gets told a story by a friendly grunt. Grunt tells of the time they launched one of those tiny drones carrying a tiny bomb to throw on silly Russians and into trenches. Pretty sure you know what I mean, Anons. Mid-flight, nowhere near Russian positions, drone disappears. Camera feed cuts off. Everyone shrugs it off like, probably got jammed by those Russian radio jamming things that they have. You can see I'm not a military lingo expert, so fucking bear with me. Overall, no big deal. Minute later, drone randomly comes back online. Camera shows it is lying on the ground somewhere. Since the area is away from enemy positions, the grunt and his pals get sent to recover the thing. When they approach the coordinates, they find a smoking, reeking pile of random rotten flesh and viscera. A totally random collection of all manner of innards and sweetmeats, including eyes, cracked bones, entrails, and feathers. Some chunky bits look like they came from a human. Some, especially the eyes and the kidney-looking bits, were way too big and seemed to be from a barnyard animal, like a horse. The mess twitches and bubbles froth for 5 more minutes. Then, it dies. No drone. although the pile was basically the size of one. One day, me and an office buddy were discussing the death of the Kill Bill guy, who choked himself to death while pulling on his kielbasa. Buddy says something like, "Yeah, that's so stupid, cause he was like 80 years old, right? Usually only teenagers do stupid shit like autoerotic asphyxiation, or that fainting mirror thing, or glue sniffing." I'm like, "Huh? What fainting mirror thing?" The guy is like really confused by my question, really acting strange like, "Whoa, you seriously never done the fainting mirror thing? I did it all the time as a kid." I still don't have a fucking clue what he's on about. So, he finally explains. The mirror thing is, you stare into a mirror in a darkened room, straight into your reflection's eyes, until the world grows dark around you, and you become short of breath and faint for a few minutes. When you wake up, you feel really high for some reason, like your body is really tight. That goes on for half an hour or so. Naturally, I tell him that, 1, neither me nor anyone on the planet Earth ever heard about this, and 2, this sounds fake, as there is no reason for you to faint due to looking at your reflection. It sounds made up and retarded. Now it's my buddy's turn to be confused. He looked as if he never actually thought about what I said. In a sheepish tone, he asks, "You're not gaslighting me, right?" I go like, "Lol, ask anyone. Nobody will know what the fuck you're even talking about, what the fuck? Who faints from staring into your reflection's eyes?" And he goes, "Well, I do. I actually tried it not that long ago, and although it took much more time than when I was a kid, it still worked for me. I thought it was normal, like some kind of auto-hypnosis or something." We never talked about it again. I still honestly believe he was trying to fuck with me for some reason, though he looked pretty shocked, to be fair. So, who knows? When I was in high school, not that long ago since I'm a Zoomy, I was hanging out at the start of the day, as per usual, when a couple of my friends asked why I was acting weird yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday, and I didn't meet them that weekend. They said I was sitting in a shopping center, and when they tried talking to me, I was distant and acted like I didn't know them. I thought they were fucking with me, but then one of them showed a picture on their phone of this dude who looked exactly like me, from a sort of backside angle, like their face wasn't completely visible. It was very likely just that someone who looked like me, but the fact about him being distant is a sort of disturbing omen, which later came true. I have a doppelganger who lives in town. Doppelganger seen driving a fancy car, and best friend asks me when I managed to get one. My mom and sister see him on separate occasions, and thought it was me even after doing a double take. One time, he showed up at my workplace while I was on break, and my supervisor thought I quit after he walked out the door, only to be completely freaked out when I show up from the other side of the store seconds later. I still never met him, and I'm pissed. I had something a bit similar to that. Sick one day when I was like 4. Mother goes to chemist to pick up my prescription, gives name and address or whatever, has quick check of it, takes me home, opens prescription at home, and it's something I'm allergic to, checks patient details on it, same name, same date of birth, except the year is one out. Address is very similar. Not going to post my real address, but it was like 56 Adam Street with an A and 56 Adam Street with an E. Has to take prescription back. This happens off and on for years, with my prescription getting mixed up with my imposter's. Or, I'm his imposter. He was a year older than me. When I was 11, I went to secondary school. Line up for meme tickets. You just have to give them your name and date of birth, then they cross you off the list. Do that. Start getting berated by the teacher for trying to trick them into giving me extra tickets. "This is the first time I've seen you. You were here 5 minutes ago." Shows me list with my name crossed out. Point out the birth year is one off. Realize he's in the same fucking school as me. Random people come up to me, mistaking me for him. Not just because of the name, but because we also look so similar. Teachers ask me all the time if we're related, despite being in the same school as him for 4 years, and only living maybe 10 minutes apart. I never once see him. Forget about it after that. When I was 20, I went to the chemist myself to pick up a prescription, give name and address. Didn't I just give you it? No. Pharmacist mentions it's an odd coincidence that me and the imposter were there at the same time. She looks out the window. Look out too. See him walking past. He's absolutely identical to me in every way. Never see him again after that. Such a weird experience. I'm starting to think I have a doppelganger. One time I went to a random rural gas station on a road trip out of state. Went inside to buy cigs. Take out my ID because I look young. The clerk sees and says, "You're good. I remember you from earlier." "What? You were here a few hours ago." "Oh, yeah, okay, thanks." Leave slightly weirded out because, quote-unquote, a few hours ago, I wasn't even in the state yet. Normally I would just chalk it up to him confusing me with someone, but I have unique facial features and tattoos, and it keeps fucking happening. I'll go somewhere I've never been, and someone I have never seen says they recognize me. I actually was, quote-unquote, legally related to my doppelganger. My uncle married this crack whore who had 5 kids, all ranging wildly in ages, youngest being 4 years, with the oldest kid being like 29. My doppelganger was my 9-year-old cousin. Again, he was only legally related to me. He was already born before my uncle met the mom, and yet somehow, the kid and I looked nearly identical. Very dark brown curly hair, extremely deep dimples, little curve in our nose bridge, brown eyes with a tint of dark green to them, even same mannerisms and everything. He used to be my best friend. Then uncle and his wife broke up, and I stopped seeing him. Years later, he would find me on Facebook, shoot me a message to chat, and he looked drastically different. A part of me just wants to go, yeah, that's puberty, etc. But I can't help but let that schizo side fly, and wonder if he was some sort of shapeshifter/doppelganger, one that couldn't latch onto me in due time, and ended up just trying to shift into others that he met. Ugh, yep, I do have one. Wasn't gonna share any personal details online because doxing, but supposedly this is anon, and the details are irrelevant, so... I live in a smallish town, technically a small city. Lots of people know me here. I'm extremely recognizable, and I also have a very particular manner of speech, and comporting myself that isn't all that common. So the other month, I went into a local convenience store, hoping to get something to take home for dinner, or whatever. The woman at the deli asks me what I like, and I told her that I like stuff with meat in it. She says, "Oh, yeah, you got that Capri sandwich the other day with a lot of meat." I said, "No, I didn't." She said, "Yes, you did. I remember you." Now the thing of it is, I am not a common phenotype for the species. I'm about 6 foot tall, 130-pound female with the world's rarest hair color, blue eyes, and I dressed fairly alternative, leather jacket and etc. The woman says, "Yeah, it was you, tall, red hair, very beautiful." She wasn't kissing my ass, though everyone appreciates a compliment. I said, "Nope, not me. Unless it was an alternate timeline version of me. That does happen to me sometimes." She said, "Well, yeah, it must have been that." She seemed like a small-town redneck normie, so that was kind of an odd thing to agree with. I do suspect it was a timeline thing, though I am usually semi-aware of alternate timelines. So, this is odd. Also, this is not the first time this has happened to me. Before, I assumed that my height and hair color are so rare that people just didn't even look at anything else. But after that incident, I'm not so sure. This woman looked right at my face and seemed very convinced this was me, to the point of agreeing with my timeline hypothesis. Off-putting. How are you gonna be like, "Yeah, alternate timelines, very possible," but then be like, "There's no such thing as another woman with red hair and leather jackets ever existing ever. I am the only one. There's a fucking imposter among us."
The buildings on Moore Lane. I had a terrifying experience while exploring the old warehouses and industrial buildings on Moore Lane and Victoria Street in Preston. The buildings are surrounded by 4 roads: Victoria Street, Sizer Street, Ashmore Street, and the main road, Moore Lane. The abandoned site consists of 3 buildings with a courtyard in between them. These are now being used as a drug den off and on. However, I am sure that there is something much more sinister, much more evil lurking in those buildings. I visited them a year ago out of interest for urban exploration for a few days. The first terrifying experience I had took place in the middle two-story building with the broken windows. You can only enter through the broken glass door at the front. At first, it seemed a rather normal abandoned building, clearly used as a workplace. When I headed up to the top floor, the signs of drug activity were more apparent, but there were no signs of any druggies. After looking around, I went back to the ground floor to look further there, when I heard the sounds of pounding footsteps coming from upstairs toward me. Now, as I said, there weren't any druggies there and I was alone. Furthermore, I couldn't see anyone coming down, so I ran and ran until I was clear from the site. But just as I stopped to catch my breath, I heard the footsteps again, meaning that whatever it was had followed me out. I then ran until I reached the safety of an enclosed building. The second horrifying experience happened several weeks later, where I had found that these criminals had opened up an entrance into the third building, which is a large 3-story Victorian building once used as a biscuit factory. It had also been used as a brickworks in the last decade, a site used to help Chinese students apply to UK universities, and at the roof the rooms were used as a dance studio. So it's a fascinating building, and a great shame that it's being used as a drug den. I made a few explorations of the place, though I did not take any pictures, which is bad practice if I was trying to be a good urban explorer. But the thought slipped my mind. The building is fascinating and itself like a labyrinth, though what I didn't know was it is as hazardous as the labyrinth of mythology, for there were worse things than druggies in the halls of that building. I never ran into any of them though, and I knew that there was a risk of meeting them. My visits were relatively safe until the last time, but it wasn't a crazy druggie that was the problem, but something else. I was visiting one morning and decided to take a fall tour of the building. This was not too dangerous until I reached the top floor and something quite terrifying took place. Now, the top floor consists of a main hall and 2 separate side areas. One looks over Ribblebrook House, a student accommodation for UCLAN, and the other is behind a door that overlooks the Vermin building of UCLAN. It only seems strange why these buildings would remain unused, despite their prominent locations. The pounding footsteps and what I was soon to hear would be the answer to that question. I attempted to open the door that overlooked the Vermin building, but it wouldn't budge. And then I heard it. The most horrendous moan, like a corpse that had been years dead rearing itself back to life. The moaning continued, but I didn't wait to see how long it would last, and I bolted and ran from the top floor all the way to the entrance, and I have never been back ever since. There's something evil in that place, something monstrous, and it's telling that the druggies do not stay there for long. The place was boarded up last year soon afterwards, but it is clear that the druggies have recently started going there again, so it is still possible to gain entrance if you wish. I've seen the way to gain entry, so I can tell you that if you want to investigate it. There's property bordering the location that used to be a pub, and is now being used for social housing, though I suspect that many of the people are druggies themselves. Well, the bins outside the house are at the fence, which they seem to climb over to get into the site. Also, the people who live in the former pub help people gain access, so you can try them as well. This is, of course, if you dare to find out what lurks inside those dreadful buildings.
Post your creepy or paranormal experiences you've had with video games. Mine is pretty boring, but I'll start us off. Playing Umjamalami with brother on PS2. Game starts acting funky. Score keeps resetting, and song restarting randomly. Skips ahead to the one baby level. Exits level on its own. Already kinda creeped out as a young kid. Save files all deleted. If you've played the game, it shows this menu as some chocolate bar thing. Anyways, for some reason there was weird texture glitches on all the squares of the chocolate bar menu. Game stops running and closes to a screen in some font that I've never seen on the game, while blaring this obnoxious sound. It sounds like the long beep made from an airbag or car after it crashes. Not sure if that's what to call it. English and Japanese translation on screen, saying something about a health and safety error. I remember the word rape being thrown around. It felt like if someone was trying to be as edgy and offensive as possible, while trying to keep it professional. Brother turns PS2 off and turns it back. Good as new.jpg. Not sure if it's some stupid inside joke hidden by the devs, but it was really creepy to a little kid at the time. Has anyone experienced this? Or any other random glitching with Umjamalami? I've had more, but that was the most prominent one. Be me, a fucking god at Smash Bros. Melee. Can wave dash and lag cancel. Play Fox. Fox gets his foot stuck in his own ass while wave dashing. What the fuck.dll. gets foot stuck in ass in real life later that day. Coincidence? I think not. Be me, playing Silent Hill 3 for the first time last summer. Like 2:30 in the morning. All lights off in the room for maximum spook effect. An amusement park. Get to the end of haunted house level where red fog chases you. As soon as I exit the haunted house, my game crashes. Screen goes black, but creepy haunted mansion voice still going. I'm afraid we can't let you leave. Or whatever it says. Feel the worst dread in my dark bedroom. I know it's just a game, but I am a pussy, and it feels like that voice is talking directly to me. Turn off computer and go to bed for the night. Bought Doom 64 at an overpriced retro game shop. Cartridge wouldn't play and needed to be cleaned multiple times before play. Boots up with demonic screeching and no music. Feels like I'm playing a creepypasta. Say fuck it and decide to post on X and record a vocaroo to see if I can find help fixing the cart. Get the nice ROM hack dipshit type of treatment. Played through a few broken levels. Turned down the sound because the moaning got annoying. Find a bizarre ghost face glitching through a wall. Posted to X with scan lines and photo, showing the face dim on screen depending on where my RL camera was. Something Doom could never do without some paranormal shit going on. Get told it's probably a phone reflection. Video games are not paranormal, etc. My face when I posted proof, and you autists didn't care. Playing Gmod with friend. Dark RP. Become gun dealer and supply friend and myself with Pancore jackhammer. Best shotgun. Proceed to massacre the server while shouting racial obscenities. Kill admin. Brought to sit. Why are you killing everyone? Oh, kill yourself, friend admin. Witty remark from friend. Admin proceeds to soft-lock our game somehow, and spam pictures of the most depraved porn and gore I've ever seen. CP, dead bodies, rape, and a sick combination of both. Call admin a slur and Alt F4. My face went. I was working out in my front yard in the middle of the night, when an older woman in a van pulled up straight onto my grass, and asked me why I was laying there, and if I needed any help. Creeped out, I told her that I lived nearby. God forbid telling her I lived there, so she could try and visit me again or some shit. She insisted a few more times that I go with her, saying things such as, I can get you something to eat, Anon. How about a burger? But I ignored and dismissed her every single time. She eventually got back in her car and left. I went back into my house not too long after that, and routinely checking the camera footage, I saw that her exact same van later drove right past my house around an hour later, that exact day, and she had 4 pale-skinned men in the back of her ride as well. She drove slowly this time, like she was checking if I was still out there or something, before speeding up, going around the curve, and leaving my neighborhood in a zoom. I am now fully convinced that vampires exist. Okay, X, I'm gonna give it to you straight. A few months ago, one of my best friends, high IQ, 4channer, esoteric Hitlerist, incredibly X-pilled and based, had an intense trip on DMT. He hasn't been the same since. He saw too much, knows too much. All these secrets of the universe, afterlife, etc. were revealed to him to the point where our meager human existence trapped on this rock unraveled into irrelevancy to him. All his humor, mirth, joy, and purpose was sapped out of him. He looks like he doesn't even sleep anymore, doesn't shave anymore. Says, what's the point? And I've honestly given up constantly. Just graduated college, but has become a recluse and avoids contact with any of his friends. How do I fix him and bring him back? What will unfuck his shit up and bring his head back into the game? Hypnotherapy? Psilocybin therapy? Shock therapy? Please, help me. Help us bring our friend back.